Thank you, Adam. It's one of my first. I'm really excited to see what we could talk about. So many things here. My parents were both entrepreneurs. I grew up in India in a small town. It was a university town. Imagine, like, a little town on the East Coast here, but in India. It was a lot of innovation in the university. My father is an engineer. He made custom machinery for heating and cooling systems. I used to go to his workshop and see like the machines being built. My mother was also an entrepreneur. They both still work and run their businesses, and she's a interior decorator, interior architect, and she has an art gallery. And I grew up with a little sister, and all of the conversations on the dinner table, not all of them, a lot of them would be around businesses because that's when they would catch up at the end of the day, and they would talk about what was happening with getting contracts or customers or what was happening with a certain employee. My parents went to all of their, weddings and the hospital if the employees needed it. It was really a family business for them. And we talked about the hard stuff too, payroll, not meeting payroll, um, having covenants broken, bank loans due. And that used to be really intimidating at the time because as a child, you're like, oh, are my parents okay? Are we going to be safe? But I think it built the risk profile and the appetite for me to do what I do now. And so I'm deeply grateful to my parents for that early immersion into running a small business. I wanted to always be a fashion designer. I grew up in India and I wanted to move to New York and I wanted to do the windows at Barney's. That was my dream. So when I emigrated to the United States, I was one of the first girls in my hometown to come to the US for undergrad. I didn't know of many schools. I knew of two schools. One was FIT because they had started a design school in India. And then obviously everybody had heard of Harvard. And I was like, no scope of going to Harvard. Let's start at FIT. And I started in the fashion major, wanting to do that, and then realized what a hard journey that would be as an immigrant. And I quickly switched to advertising and marketing. And I thought that was a general course of curriculum that could go in a lot of different directions. And so I started to intern when I was in school at an ad agency and a graphic design studio and found that it was a very good mix of creativity and strategy. And when I graduated, I started working at a boutique agency called Renegade, which was actually part of the Dentsu conglomerate. Dentsu is one of the largest advertising media holding companies in the world. So it was a great sort of first step. And that's how I started in the world of ad and media. Sure. I had worked at Dentsu. I started my business pretty young. I was 26, about to be 27 when I started. So in New York, I worked at Dentsu. My first 3 years were spent on a lot of the Asian brands, Panasonic, HSBC, Citibank, and doing work across below the line. That's when they used to call it below the line. So we would do experiential, we would do radio, uh, everything outside of TV, right? we did microsites, digital buys. This was the early days of the internet, and I loved that world. In about 3 years from when I started to work at the agency, I wanted to go to India. India had just opened up, so the BRIC countries, India, Brazil, China, had just opened up their economies, Russia, and there was a big influx of brands. So we went from being a socialist country for 50 years after independence to now having from one brand of soap to three brands of soap, from having one radio station and one television station to MTV and Star coming in. And I grew up in that. Like I was 15 when MTV came to India and then all the brands came. And so naturally the advertising infrastructure had to get built. So a lot of the global ad agencies at the time set up joint ventures with Indian firms. That was sort of the, economic climate. You couldn't just start, you had to have a JV. So my boss in India used to run a media business and had a JV with Dentsu to start Dentsu in India. I raised my hand with my boss and said I'd love to go to India, and I worked for Dentsu in India for just short of a year. Had a lot of learnings in terms of what I liked about the business, what I didn't like about working in India as a female, and that sort of gave me the idea that it is the barrier to entry to start a services business is very low. You need one client to believe in you, and you need a creative mind and a strategic outlook. And so came back to actually Chicago, where I met um, uh, Krish, who became my business partner, and then started to formulate this idea around phenomenon. And so at first we were mostly a strategy firm, and then we bolted on creative and production. But we started with one client, and it's very organic. I mean, I think a lot of agency founders start in that way. They realize they're good at something, they want to run their own P&L, they have one or two clients that trust them, and then you need other partners. If you're a creative, you need a business minded person. If you're a business minded person, you need the person who does the creative. And so in that sense, my co-founder and I were good partners. We both wanted the same things, but we had different skills to bring. Yeah, it is a period of uh you come together for an idea. I have a co-founder now. I always love to build businesses with partners. It's nice to get you could a lot of people go at it alone, and I like having a shared vision with someone. So the shared vision is very important. Like, what are we trying to accomplish? Why do we care about this enough? What's our why? And if you have alignment on the why, you are might have different approaches on the what as well, and the how is definitely going to be different in terms of how you schedule your workday, what areas of the business that you like. So I could talk about my business partner now, Marissa, and we both have different approaches, we both have different ways of handling it. I'm more sort of um, I would say she's very buttoned up operationally. I am more focused on some of the outward aspects of our business. But we're really aligned on what we want to do, and what we want to see, and the kinds of founders we want to support. And so I think and it's always like high road, long view with my partner. There's always going to be day to day friction. Like work is hard, clients are hard, growing is hard. But at the end of the day, can you have respect for the other person, value what they bring to the table? Do you have a good understanding of like, this is what I don't want to do and I'm not good at? And if you can find the other puzzle piece, I think that you have a really good shot at building a business together. Sure. It's like wanting to do everything or wanting to be in every meeting. I had a lot of FOMO, and that wasn't right. My business partner is a very competent, one of the best in the world, I would say, at what he did. He's highly creative, highly strategic, and I'm very good at the business aspects of running a business, which was operations, HR, legal, like hiring, recruiting, like building the the bones that the creative and the strategy could fly off of. I didn't have to be in client meetings, and I just had like that was a sexy part of the business, because it was like, yes, let's work on this pitch, and what's the creative work looking like? And I was like, I don't have to do it. I don't have to be invited to any of that. And that was like something I learned, and then like was happy to give up. Exits are tough. Building a business is tough, and then knowing when to leave it is tough. It's a very emotional, personal decision. Sometimes you're forced into it by a partner. Sometimes the economics force you into it. If you're running out of cash, if you have a partner or partners who want to sell and you're the only one, there is no perfect exit. Anyone who tells you it's perfect, is lying to you. There's going to be some heartbreak emotionally. There's going to be a lot of grinding, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of anxiety. And nobody has a crystal ball in terms of like, was this the right time? You make decisions based on the information that you have at the time, and you hope for the best. So, how was the exit like? It was hard. It took us a couple of years to get to signatures. We ran a process, and that was the best advice that I can give any founder is if you have an interested party from the time that you think that you want to sell, always run a process, hire the people, give them the percentage, whether hire a banker. They're going to be Yeah, the banker decision is so important because they become your coach, your therapist, your confidant, your voice of reason. It's very easy for us to be emotionally attached to our business. Anyone is not really in that business, and so we always want more. And it's your banker's job to say, I think we've tapped out this deal. Like either you take it or you get off. Um, yeah, and you don't want to be negotiating with the buyer. I mean, look, I've had friends who ran the process themselves and had a successful exit. I personally liked having somebody who went to bat for me, while I also ran the business. Yes, and terms. I mean, as a founder, if you're running your business, you don't know all of the exit terms. There were so many things I learned along the way that I had to be taught. And some of them were hard lessons in terms of like, I wish I had dressed my business for exit way before I had thought about an exit. And so a lot of us who are solopreneurs or have a partnership and we're running our business, it, kind of came up organically. It's not venture backed. You're sort of running it, the way that you want to run it, and the partners take distributions or you may be reinvesting. But at some point you might want to exit, and it's really like that's another point too in terms of what I tell founders. Always like think about the exit, whether or not you do it, because that'll give you a sense of how to manage to the bottom line or the top line, because based on your business, some people will buy it for the EBIT and some people will buy it for the growth. And you always want to know so that you can construct your books and your business in a way that buyers will find attractive. Yeah, so synergy was um, came out of right after the exited phenomenon. I wanted to work with founders. I love the growth phase. and I'm a founder, I'm an operator. I felt like I had a lot to give to a founder who was going at it by themselves, whether it was in terms of like just like lived experience, operational advice, resources, network. I'm fairly plugged into the LA ecosystem, and I wanted to invest in founders that I had alignment with, and B, so they would listen, we could have conversations, and we could talk about hard things. And I wanted to invest in founders or companies where I wanted to see that service or product out in the world. I became a mom at the time that I exited, and I think my worldview shifted drastically in that, like, I had worked for the bigger brands my whole career, and I wanted to say, okay, who is making things better, whether it's better supply chains, better ingredients, better for the planet, better for people. And that changed, that sort of lens changed. And I wanted to support businesses that were trying to, come up with newer, better ways of doing things. And so I started to put my own capital into growth stage, early stage founders. These weren't very big checks, but I felt very invested in these companies. And I took either board roles or board advisor roles, or sometimes I had consulting agreements with these companies with for some advisory. And that's sort of the initial work at Synergy. It was kind of my own family office type evergreen fund. I was writing checks off of my balance sheet. So I didn't have a mandate other than, the companies that I found very interesting and that I wanted to learn from. So that was a lot of health, biotech, healthcare, like health technology, and then consumer. Those are some of those investments from those years. There's so many. I think one is like, is the company well capitalized? Do they have enough runway? Um, sort of running the company, like cash is so important, and cash management is so important. And whether you're raising or not raising, I'm not so concerned about profitability, as long as you have enough runway to grow. The second thing is, not hiring the right people. And now we're in a great sort of scenario where you can hire great people fractionally. So it's really surrounding yourself with good people who've done that, who've come from the industry, who bring their experience to bear, and have collectively more life experience in that world than you have. And so I think team are the two important things. And then the third one is really, for CPG, at least, is, okay, you started with a hero product, great, but are you thinking about portfolio expansion? Or maybe you're a direct to consumer business. Are you thinking about omni-channel and retail? And so just knowing, like, sort of where that second wind of growth is going to come from, whether you were a pure play D2C player, or you were a hero product, a solo sort of product that took off. That came at a very sort of once in a lifetime that you get to work on a company like this. So Q was a diagnostic company that made at-home lab quality tests, and um, they were a very small team. They had grants from some of the federal authorities to work on respiratory at-home tests. It was flu, and then COVID hit in 2020. And they developed, the company very quickly developed a COVID assay. and we got a lot of support from the government. I was a passive investor in the company, and then realized that there was a lot to do. So I literally just started out by doing the website and said we need a better presence for our business. And then one thing led to the other. I was there for about 18 months, and in that time, the company grew from you know I would say less than 100 employees to over 1,000 employees. So I didn't have preview on 2020 March to December 2021. And that was a absolutely wild ride. This was an incredible product, but it was, we were regulated by the FDA in terms of the tests. So anytime there's a FDA hurdle to cross, you always run the risk of the FDA not approving it. And a lot of companies run into this in this category, and Q ran into the same thing. And so ultimately, the company became insolvent. And but until from going from that 100 to 1,000 employees, we worked with some of the biggest sort of enterprise customers we worked with. We hired the best people. My marketing team grew. I was the head of marketing. The team grew to almost 75 between the agency partners and our internal team. And we did all of the B2B. We launched the D2C website. We went through the IPO. We built all of the IPO materials. We had a successful opening bell at the NASDAQ. So it was a lot of great wins. Ultimately, the company couldn't get their tests approved by the FDA. It's such a great question. Um, if you're a solopreneur, you're building repeatable systems just to like get your brain to focus on where it needs to, and getting more ROI from you is very important. Um, at the same time, like it's parallel path and it's like a helix of the DNA. It's like you can't just have repeatable systems and no team. You can only grow so fast. I think at some point you have to start to integrate people. And my thing has always been like, do if you're hiring at every stage looks different. Okay, so when you're going to raise a Series C, yes, hire somebody from a bigger known brand who has led the Series C, or who has gone through it. If you're hiring for a CFO and you're ready to get an IPO, you want an IPO ready CFO. There's no doubt. Okay. If you and at that point you probably have a finance team, and you'll have some attrition. Some people will just be like, I was gunning for the job, I don't have it, I'm going to leave. That's fine. But you're relying on the newcomer to build their own team somehow and fill in the gaps. But that person is going to be a key spokesperson in your business. They're your proxy, so you want to hire with that heft. When you're hiring in the very initial stages, your first 10, 15 employees, um, hire people who are hungry, hire people who will go the extra mile, people who are going to get their, like, roll up their sleeves. And this is so trite, but I truly mean it, who really, really believe in that early vision and will do anything and everything. And you want sort of multitasking people who can run a lot of different things. And then build up from there, and you will graduate from people, and some of the early hires will become mid management, and those are very important conversations to manage with those people, that we are going to bring on somebody senior, but we truly value you at the company. And so when we were, even Phenomenon was 100 people, I remember a lot of my day was spent in recruiting. I think I probably have interviewed over 1,000 people to hire those 100, right? Think about the math, it just works out that way. And then it's not just one person in that role for 10 years. You're hiring, like my director of UX, I probably had 5 people in that role before we found the person that was the right fit. um, And so a lot of my time was spent hiring, and then a lot of my time was spent managing conversations with key employees and managers and even just junior employees who felt like they just really wanted to speak to, because they saw me at the office. And when you're under 100 people, people like, it's kind of, isn't flat, but it is where people feel like they could approach you. And I would always say, like, you could book a, you could book 30 minutes with me. So a lot of my time was spent on just people management. You know, super, it's such a sort of, there's so many intangibles there. And I'm sure that you have felt that. I feel like one of my gifts is just to like get a really good read, a feel for somebody beyond the piece of paper. And so much of it is intuition. I think in terms of whether this person is going to fit in your current ecosystem. Are they a disruptor? I think that's what I look for the first. Like, that's a red flag for me, especially if they're coming into a team that I care about. Because I've had my worst hires, a negative disruptor culturally. Yes, yes, yes. And they could disrupt, yeah, they could disrupt work wise. They could blow stuff up if they're taking care of the team. But if they're not your first, if they're not your first 10 hires and you're bringing them as a head of a team, you really want to see, like, I want to see, are they going to be nurturing this team? Are they going to take care of the team? Is this person a cultural additive versus a negative disruptor? So I think that's just based on the types of the questions you ask, their sort of lean on things, how they've managed their previous teams, what they're looking to do in this role. I spend a lot of time on motivation and purpose, like, why this role, why this company, why now? What does your life outside of work look like? I'm trying to get a sense of what their yes, yes. And what they would like to do if they had carte blanche in this company. What are the things that they would like to see? What is their view of us from the outside? Um, I think that I think by the time they come to me, their skills have been tested. We've done the reference checks, or some of them at least. So I'm just really looking for a fit. Yeah, that's such a great question. Um, Yeah, and I think that leads to, like, what are my biases? You're right. Like, am I looking for a fit here? And I think you just taught me something, that maybe you're not looking for a fit, you're looking for an ad. Um, Yes, I love that. And so the bias thing is real. You want to like somebody, and if they like you back, then it's like, okay, there's like a certain chemistry in the interview. Um, but I'm really focused on sort of their thinking. Like, that's why I ask about, like, where do you see this company going, and what are we not doing right, and what could you be, contributing to this company? And this is the way that we've been doing it, this is our clients, this is our systems, what is it that you see that you could be doing differently? I want to see them have, I want to see their vision a little bit in terms of their senior hire, because they're going to be leading, you know, their own team in a way that I don't have fully, like, I don't have control over. No, no. I mean, look, I think diversity absolutely, like the best boards are diverse because people bring different experiences. So I'm going to talk about, well, diversity of experience, I think, is like the best way to hedge risk, because then other people around the table are seeing what you're not seeing. They're also seeing opportunities that you're not seeing. So somebody could be have deep manufacturing experience. Somebody could have deep sort of corporate finance and M&A experience. Somebody could have deep experience in sort of like the marketing and the branding. So you always want to approach something where people have deep experience they're bringing to the table. That experiential diversity is the most important, I think. Outside of that, yes, I think that gender diversity is very important. Um, because women and men make decisions slightly differently on risk, on ethics, on governance. And I think that women tend to be conservative in a lot of areas. And I'm not a moral police and say women are more ethical, but I think women tend to want to create more nurturing environments, and women don't always put, um, you know, sort of the shareholder value in terms of return on capital as the highest priority in a business. And so and men bring different things to the table, more risk taking, you know. And so I think that that type of um sort of more, and I say aggression in a good way, like more sort of hefted, like, you know, pushing in our favor. So I think gender diversity is good in all the ways, especially if you're looking at, you know, and women who have kids and maybe, you know, who are moms. I think that that lens is very vital to the health of an employee base. And the third is obviously racial diversity, because people have different experiences, and a company serves all of the various stakeholders. So you've seen, I mean, we've seen sort of when when companies are homogenous and run by homogenous boards, that in the long run they don't succeed. I think red flags. I want to be thoughtful. Red flags are disregard for the experience at the table. Anytime a founder has such a sort of, founders are egotistical people. Okay, they're humble in ways, and then there's like they, you have to have so much conviction and courage as a and a vision as a founder. Only then, like, the brave venture out. But even so, there are founders who will listen to the experience at the table, and then there's founders who just do their thing. And those are the founders that are a bit scary, because you don't know everything. You know you know what you're set out to do. Maybe you're a creator of a product, you have this vision, you know, you're a technical founder, you're a creative founder, but you haven't seen the other side of the business. And that's why, you know, having people on early is going to hedge your risk. But if you're not listening, then that's a problem. And every time we have founders who don't listen, I back off, because I'm like, this is going to be a really hard thing to work with this person to get them to exit, because they're going to be that petulant child, or just like that, like throw a tantrum when things are not going their way. So I think personality wise, it's like if you're not able to listen, that's a red flag. That means you won't scale. Um, and that it actually trickles down to so many things. Like if you're like, I don't want to dilute myself, that could be a thing that a founder says. I'm like, well, you know what, that's going to be part of like growing this business is dilution. Or I don't want to bring on a board. Well, that's not going to be okay. If you want institutional capital, you're going to have a board. Or whatever it is that we're asking them to do, right? Valuation, that's another thing that founders get really upset about, in terms of, well, this is the market, you might want X, but this is Y, and that's what we're getting. Um, and so that's sort of problematic. I think personality wise, I think we know the red flags. In terms of a founder that can't scale, um, it's a founder who wants to have too much control on their business. At some point, you just have to, like, yeah. Our Some of our companies are in the, well, what's getting me excited is I think there's like plenty of opportunity in CPG. CPG has like sort of a has not been in favor of investors for a little bit because we haven't seen many exits. But we're excited about some of our portfolio companies in the better for you food and beverage space. I'm excited about non-alc personally. We're going to see a huge shift. We are seeing that shift where people are drinking less, exploring sort of sobriety. They're giving up on alcohol altogether. We're going to see a lot more of the and finding ways to relax in other ways. We've seen sort of some of the big names raise a bunch of financing. One of our companies is Dessoir. We're really excited about that brand, which is a non-alc company. So that's there's a lot of things happening in the women's health space. We saw MIDI just reached $1 billion valuation, and women's health is not a niche. It is very much mainstay. Half of the world's population is women. And so we're seeing a lot of great products and marketplaces. I mean, the full spectrum of women's health. I think longevity is another topic, and that comes down to sort of just better customer experiences around healthcare consumption. Whether it's companies like Function or the wearables, like there's just so much innovation there, which I'm excited about, which is going to be better for all of us. If we can have more ownership of our health and better data, then we're just more invested in our health because we see that data every day. And I think that is a really good tie-in of like, what are we putting in our bodies every day that is better? And food is like 12% of global GDP. It's not going anywhere. And so that's why even now when I go to the grocery store, not Erewhon or Whole Foods or Sprouts, but I go to the regular like mass grocery stores, there's so many products that have so much bad stuff in them. And I'm like, at some point in my lifetime, I hope that, we really turn a corner where everything that you pick up in a supermarket is really truly something you want to put in your body that's, nutritious and nourishing. Don't leave until you leave. And that means like pursue something all the way at the end, to the end. Don't leave because you're scared or intimidated or you don't think you're going to get the job or get the part or get the funding. Like see it all the way through. And then the other thing is like, why have one when you have two? I think it's always like optionality is great. I always think about that for founders as well. We can't just pursue path A. We want to pursue it very passionately, but we also need optionality, and that puts you in a better position of negotiation. waking up to do something that I love, that I feel really passionate about, feeling like I'm making an impact that's just beyond me and my own P&L. Um, and making money while doing it. I think it's like, oh, I'm in a very fortunate place after 25 years, 30 years of being in, in my career, where I wake up every day motivated to help my founders, help build companies, and know that my companies are putting good things out in the world. Like, it's such a great place to be. It's hard because, everything is, but I feel really happy that I get to do this. That's it. Thank you, Adam.